It's time for your Low Country real estate market update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Thanks for joining me this morning. I'm your host, Brian Beatty. And if this is your first time tuning into this program, this is where we talk about all things real estate. If you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, this is a program where you can take some market information, learn from my experiences as somebody that's been in the top 1% of this market for the past several years in a row, and become an informed consumer, become a force to be reckoned with if you're going to be buying, selling, or investing in real estate, because you've got the information. And so what I like to do is I like to take national, regional, local news, apply that to us here in the Low Country, again, so that if you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing, you've got the right information to go off of. If at any point in time you'd like to contact me, I invite you to do so. I can be reached on my cell phone, 843-345-1273. Or you can visit my website, listingsincharleston.com. On that website, you can take a look at everything I have for sale, everything I've sold. Search the MLS. Anything for sale in the Charleston area is on that website. You can learn more about me, and you can learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee, which very simply states that I will sell your house in 59 days or less, or I'll sell it for half my commission. So go to that website to learn more about that program, listingsincharleston.com. And I'll also say that I'm in the studio this morning. So feel free to call me if you have any questions, comments, complaints, concerns about anything real estate related at all. The number in the studio is 843-556-1250. 843-556-1250. So let me tell you a little bit about what I have planned over the next hour. I want to talk about something that I've seen happen more and more this year at a surprising rate, and that is the amount of deals that are falling through. Buyers or sellers getting cold feet, something doesn't go right, and the transaction doesn't close. So I want to talk about that first. What happens when deals fall through? And then a little bit later on, we'll talk about bouncing back after a buyer backs out from an agreement from a seller standpoint. What can you do to put your property back out there on the market and hopefully get right back into the showings and accept another offer on the property and have that not tarnish the buyer's perception of your property? A little bit later on, we'll talk about expired and withdrawn listings. Even though we're in a great market, we still have a very high number of properties that are not selling. So I want to talk about why. And then lastly, we'll just go through some market stats and talk a little bit about why I think now really is a good time to buy. I'm going to give you some very shocking numbers, quite honestly, about what would happen to your payment if interest rates go up. So all that and more as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show rolls on here over the next hour. Again, feel free to call into the studio, 843-556-1250 if you have any questions. But let's talk about deals falling through and buyers getting cold feet. I'll tell you a quick story. This is really more from the seller's perspective, but had a listing, sold it for above listing price. In a very short amount of time. We priced it well. They did some things to the property to make sure that when we went on the market, it was priced correctly, it was in good condition, it was marketed well. Everything came together, and they were under contract for more than they were asking in just a few weeks, I think 2 weeks. And so we get down through the process, and there are some parts about the seller's home that are older that need repair. So we decided to offer a home warranty to combat those issues and the repairs that we inevitably were going to be asked to fix. Well, we get further and further down the line. The buyer asks for some repairs. The seller agrees to do them. But the buyer finds out that the air conditioning unit on this property it's on its last leg. It's like 22 years old. And although it's working properly, it is more than likely going to need to be replaced. And so, of course, with the buyer's luck, they're thinking they're going to buy this house. They're going to get a home warranty. And some part of the home warranty isn't going to cover the air conditioning system, or the air conditioning system is going to go out on month 13, and it's not going to be covered by the home warranty. They're going to be stuck with a $6,000 repair to replace the air conditioning system. That's their thought. And so they're trying to do everything they can to get the seller to essentially pay for a new air conditioning system or half of an air conditioning system or something. And the seller keeps saying no. The buyer keeps pressing the issue, and finally the seller says, you know what, I'm done. I don't want to sell my property to these buyers anymore. So as we're just a few days away from closing, the seller tells me this, and I say to the seller, I need you to be 100% certain that this is what you want to do, because once we start to go down this path, certain things are going to happen that you need to be informed about. So this doesn't sound like you, Mr. Seller. What I'm going to suggest is that you talk to an attorney to determine what this means for you, because everything with regard to this contract and all the contingencies associated with this sale have been satisfied. The buyer is pushing an issue that they don't have a right to push. So if they were to say, all right, fine, I'll proceed to closing, and you say you don't want to sell your home anymore, then technically you're in default. So you need to have a very clear understanding of what that means. So I'm not going to tell the other buyer agent that you told me this. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to talk with an attorney, and then let's reconvene a few hours later. Let's make sure that's exactly what you want to do. Well, he spoke with the closing attorney, decided that that was not the way to go, because there's a lot that can happen. You know, if you choose to default on a contract, first of all, this is what the contract actually says when it comes to something as simple as earnest money. But there's a lot more that can happen to a buyer or seller than just getting their earnest money taken. This is what the contract says. It says that the parties understand and agree that under all circumstances, including default, the escrow agent, aka the person that's holding the earnest money, will not disperse the earnest money to either party unless both parties have an executed agreement authorizing the disbursement, or until a court of competent jurisdiction has directed a disbursement as agreed upon in this contract. So in other words, if you decide that you don't want to sell your property, or if the buyer decides that they don't want to buy a property, I, as the real estate agent holding the earnest money, or my company holding the earnest money, we can't just give somebody the earnest money and say, well, didn't work out, sorry, let's try again next time. We have to have an agreement between both the buyer and the seller. That is one of two ways that earnest money will be dispersed. Either the buyer and seller agree as to who gets what and how much of it, or it goes to court and a court of competent jurisdiction will determine who gets the earnest money. So let's dive just a little bit further into that. If the seller defaults in the performance of any of the seller's obligations under the contract, then the buyer can deliver notice to the seller to terminate the contract. They can pursue any remedies available to buyer at law or equity, and they can recover attorney's fees and all other direct costs of litigation if the buyer prevails in any action against the seller. Same thing applies for the seller if a buyer defaults. So, why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because real estate can be a very emotional process. I've always told clients that there is no such thing as a stress-free real estate transaction. Things are going to come up that stress you out. Things are going to come up that feel as though they're out of your control. And you have to remember that we're dealing with another person who is equally as emotional about the process. Sometimes more, sometimes less. Either way, it's an emotional process, and you don't want to let your emotions get in the way of sound judgment. With this particular seller that I'm telling you about, the reason he decided to move forward with selling his property is because not only would he not get the earnest money, but he could be liable to pay all of the buyer's expenses associated with the transaction, which could be things like the attorney's fees, the home inspection, the CL 100, the appraisal, any bank fees that he may have incurred. And then you've got the real estate commission. You know, real estate agents, we can't control whether or not a buyer or seller is going to default at the closing table. You know, obviously the worst case scenario or the nightmare for a real estate agent is that you work your butt off over the course of several months to try and get a buyer and seller agree to buy and sell a house. And then at the closing table, something blows up and nobody gets anything. The buyer doesn't get to buy it. Seller doesn't get to sell it. Agents don't get a commission. Well, in this particular case, the attorney said, look, you know, the only thing we're waiting for is a closing date. Everything contractually looks good. So if you decide not to sell, you need to understand that you might be sued by the real estate agents for any claim they feel they have to the commission. Well, obviously, expenses rack up. That becomes a very scary number for the seller. And so they decided to move forward with the sale. But I'm seeing it. So that's kind of a story on the seller side of things. And if you have any stories about something like that, maybe you were buying or selling a home and a buyer or seller backed out on you. I know I've had it happen to me. I was buying an investment property, had it under contract, and this was several years ago. The seller said, you know what, I'm not going to move forward with this process. I was buying a short sale. They were having some very serious issues financially. I came in and I offered to help them out. They got back on their feet and they said, we don't want to sell the house. And I said, you know what, that's fine. Give me my earnest money back and reimburse me for the inspection that I paid for, and I'll leave you alone. And they did, and it was fine. But again, maybe you have some stories about something like this. Maybe something like this has happened to you. And if you'd like to talk about anything on the air, I invite you to give us a call here in the studio, 843-556-1250. That's the number here in the studio, 843-556-1250. So when we come back, we're going to talk about how to bounce back if, in fact, your deal falls through. If it doesn't make it to closing, how do we prepare your home for sale and answer some of those objections that we'll likely get from all the buyers and all the agents that are going to ask why the deal didn't go through. So all that and more as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Visit Brian Beatty's website at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Expert news and views on the Lowcountry real estate scene. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston, and thanks again for tuning in to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Appreciate those of you that tune in and listen to this program and use it as an opportunity to learn a little bit more about the real estate market. And for those of you that are just tuning in, we just talked about buyers and sellers backing out of deals. And I shared some insight and I shared a few stories about that. And it just seems like back when the market was really soft, 2010, 2011, you saw a lot of buyers backing out of deals because prices were still going down and they felt like they were overpaying for the property. And interestingly, now that we're in a really strong market and prices are going up, buyers still feel like they're overpaying for property. They're getting cold feet because of the fact that prices are going up so fast in so many different areas of Charleston. They really want to pay 2011, 2012 prices in 2015. And unfortunately, that's just not the way it is right now. So we talked about, what happens if deals go south from an earnest money perspective. What would happen to the seller? What would happen to the buyer? Are they liable for any expenses? And in many cases, the answer would be yes. So we went through that, and what I want to talk about now is, let's say that you're under contract, you're a seller, and the buyer decides they don't want to purchase the home. They back out for whatever reason. Maybe they have a right to, maybe they don't. So how do you position yourself to take advantage of the opportunity, perhaps spin this into a positive thing, put your home back on the market, and immediately get back into the swing of things? If you have any questions, feel free to call us here in the studio. Again, maybe you've had a deal go south and you want to talk about it, share your experience. The number here in the studio is 843-556-1250, 843-556-1250. And again, you can always go online and visit me on my website, listingsincharleston.com, where you can take a look at everything I have for sale, everything I've sold. Search the MLS, learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee and what I do to market my properties for sale. And of course, you can call or text my cell phone, 843-345-1273. So I received this email a little while ago, at this point, probably 3 or 4 months ago. Let me read the email, and that will kind of springboard us into this discussion about bouncing back after a buyer backs out of the agreement. So here's what this person's email said. She said, I recently had a buyer back out of a contract. It was right after the inspection, and he claims it was due to deficiencies. However, the inspection revealed nothing of significance or that we couldn't address. My agent's guess is it had more to do with him being a first-time home buyer who was trying to buy a house much larger than he could really afford to buy. He was doing 100% financing, and he thinks the numbers finally just sunk in after he realized homes weren't perfect and they required maintenance. His agent is also brand new. Anyway, it sounds like it was more of a cold feet issue to me. My question and concern is this. Before his offer, I was on the market about 2.5 weeks and had a showing every other day, if not more. Supposedly, there were other parties interested in making offers, but this guy beat them to the punch. Thanks to him, I was off the market for 30 days. Now, having just got back on the market, I've only had one showing in the past 7 days, only one. So is there anything we can do to bounce back better from this? Going from that much action to so little really makes me wonder what's going on. We changed nothing on the listing. We're moving in 2 weeks, and at that point, we will have an empty house to show instead of a staged one, not to mention the sheer fact that I really want to get this home sold. How can you help? So I replied to this person's email, but I thought that it was it's something that happens very often. And sometimes I'm hired by sellers that had their property under contract, the deal didn't work out, an agent dropped the ball somewhere, and now they need to go and they need to hire someone to make sure that if they agree to accept a contract from a buyer, that there's an extremely high likelihood that it will get to the closing table. When we, as real estate agents, I'll just say this, when real estate agents do their business planning for a year, they have to calculate a certain percentage of deals falling through. So it's just inevitable, when you're selling 100 or more homes a year, like my team does, you're going to have some deals that go south because you just can't control everything all the time. And I usually calculate about 5% as my fall through rate because I'm successful at getting deals to the closing table. My slogan is passion, integrity, results. I focus a lot on the results, and I make sure that the contracts are as ironclad as they can possibly be so that buyers don't have the right to back out if they get cold feet. There's got to be some penalty, some repercussion there, because as this seller has stated in her email, she's now been back on the market for weeks. She's only had one showing. She was getting showings 3 or 4 times, 5 times a week. So obviously things have slowed down for her. So here's what I would say to this seller if I were at the table and we were talking through things. Not giving away everything that I would do, of course, because I have a lot of competitors that listen to this program, but here are some of the general things that I would say. I would say, first of all, when you listed your property for sale, you're essentially marketing to 2 groups of people. You've got 2 groups of buyers out there. And if you think about it, group number 1 are the buyers that are ready, willing, and able to buy your house. They are looking to buy a house. They just haven't found the right one yet. Okay, so that's group number 1. That's your best chance at selling your house right now is with group number 1. Group number 2 are the people that choose to enter the real estate market every day. Something has changed in their lives. They've gotten a pay raise. Their family is growing. They're relocating to the area. Whatever the case might be, they are now considered a homeowner. Group number 2 is always growing. It's an ever-changing group. Group number 1 is too, but they are on a mission to buy a house. So when you first list your property for sale, you get the benefit of catering to both groups of people. You've got the ready, willing, and able group, and then you've got the group that is always entering the real estate market. And so that's why, as real estate agents, we tell people you have your best shot at selling within the first 6 weeks because you've got both groups of buyers that are looking at your house. If at some point over the next 6 weeks or so, 6 weeks isn't a magic number, but it's usually about 6 weeks, group number 1 goes away. They either see your house online and they say, yes, that works for me, or they see it somewhere and they say, nope, I don't like it. I don't like the floor plan. I don't agree with the value. Whatever the case might be. So that's why with this particular seller, she put it under contract fairly quickly. 2.5 weeks. Now she's back on the market. She's only had one showing over the past week. One thing that I would say to her is you got to give it a little time. Obviously when you first list your property for sale and you have this big rush of activity, that's to be expected. That's what happens with almost every listing that's priced well, that's in good condition, that's marketed well. But you have to ask yourself, what's standard in your area? Should you be expecting 3 or 4 showings per week? Or was that just because you were a brand new listing to the market? When I sit down with sellers, I tell them, based on the number of homes that I sell, that I have a good idea of how many showings we should be getting on average. And that number of showings is a direct result of the online traffic and all of the other exposure that we create for their listing to find buyers and to get them excited about coming to see the house. So it depends on the area, but let's say you're in, Mount Pleasant in the $400,000 to $500,000 price range, you should be getting a minimum of 2 to 3 showings per week. If you're not, then something might be wrong. Sometimes it's price, sometimes it's conditions, sometimes it's marketing, sometimes it's nothing. But it's worth a conversation with your real estate agent. So I would tell you just to take a little time, let the marketing do its thing, let some buyers get back into the swing of taking a look at your house. It's not going to be instantaneous, and a week is not enough time for you to determine whether or not you can sell your home again or not. But you did say in this email that you changed nothing about the listing. Personally, I think your agent needs to address the issue of why the property is now back on the market. Because any real estate agent that looks at that property is going to go into the history of the MLS. And by the way, the history, you can't hide anything as a seller when it comes to marketing your property for sale in the MLS. The history will show you how many times it's been on the market, what price you were asking, whether or not you reduced your price, whether you changed anything about the listing, and whether or not it's gone under contract. So I think that you need to address that in the listing. I think you need to say something and spin it in a positive way that says, did this property sell too fast? Here's your opportunity to come and view this property and make an offer. Seller's motivated to sell, or something like that. But I would also address in the MLS remarks and the remarks on the websites that home appears on that this property fell through because of blank. Say that the buyer had cold feet. Say that here's your opportunity to buy a home in great condition. We've had an inspection, and there are very little to no issues. Spin it as a positive, but I do think you need to make some sort of a change in the MLS. And so for sellers that are listening that have had their property on the market, they put it under contract and the deal didn't work out, you do have to take some time to determine whether or not marketing the property as it was is within your best interest. I personally like to address that issue head on, because whenever I have a property that I list that goes back on the market, it was under contract and now it's active on the market again, every single agent that calls says, hey, why did that deal fall through? Well, if I address that in the remarks section of the listing, then what it really does is it squashes that buyer's fear that something might be wrong with your house. You need to make sure that buyers feel comfortable with your house. So address that in the remarks section. So hope this is helpful for those of you that are listening. Again, I'd love to take some calls if there are any of you out there that have had issues like this happen on your house. Maybe you're a buyer and the seller didn't live up to their end of the bargain. They decided to back out, or they just didn't do what they were supposed to do. And you said, hey, if you're not going to do this, then I need to go elsewhere. So if you have any stories like that, feel free to call into the studio, 843-556-1250. What I would also say is when you put the property back on the market, if it's been under contract and the deal falls through, you really need to start over from a listing agent's perspective. For us as listing agents that represent sellers mostly, I have a team of agents, and obviously we have several agents that represent buyers. I represent the sellers. And so if I have a deal that falls through, I essentially start over this long checklist of everything that I do to market my properties for sale, because it technically is a new listing again, right? And it's going back on the market. So I need to now call all the real estate agents again. I need to send out my email blast again. I need to call the neighborhood and let them know that the property is still available. I need to do this laundry list of things to create exposure. We've got to get as much foot traffic through the door as possible, but we have to make sure that foot traffic is qualified foot traffic. And that's kind of a separate topic for a later date. But just on that quick note, I would rather have 10 really, really good showings from buyers that want to be there, that have had all their questions answered about the property, than have 25 people tramps through the house that might not necessarily be interested. It goes back to that age-old idea of how you market properties for sale. You either give them all the information so that they can make an informed decision about their house before they get there, or maybe you're the type of agent where you don't post all the photos, you don't give them all the information, you just give them enough to entice them to come to the house. Personally, I think that's a big waste of time for the agent, for the buyer, and for the seller. If anybody comes through my listing, I want them to be there because they like it. Okay, we've got a call coming in. Jim from West Ashley's got some questions about homes going back on the market. Jim, how can I help you this morning?
Hey, it's not so much a question, but my wife and I had something happen to us that we ended up catching, but maybe it's something that your listeners might be in a situation for.
Okay.
We were looking for a house, and we had seen one that had gone back on the market in, I think, the Shadow Moss area.
Okay.
And we had done the same thing that you were talking about, asking, why was it taken off the market and put back on? And, of course, the day we go there to look at it, they're doing work on the foundation. So we asked about it. And what we were told by the seller's agent was that, there's going to be a complete structural warranty on the house. It's been addressed. And so then my wife and I decided to put an offer in.
Mm-hmm.
But we also, we'd like to also see that structural warranty. And luckily, when they sent us a copy of it, it wasn't a structural warranty at all. It was like a parts and labor warranty on the work that had been done.
Really?
So it was just something that we had learned that, before you make an offer based on something else that's been put back on the market, make sure you take a look at the warranty, because it's not always what the seller thinks it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really good point. Whenever a property goes through the inspection process and the seller learns of issues or deficiencies, it's both the seller and the real estate agent's job to disclose those material defects. But what we see happen a lot of time is that a property will go back on the market and the seller won't change anything on the property condition disclosure statement, which is a form that they're legally required to fill out based on South Carolina law that says, here are all the issues that I know about that are being, disclosed by me, so that you don't come around a little bit later on and find out that I lied about the condition and sue me.
Yeah, I mean, they disclosed it, and it was just, I just don't know if the agent understood or if the homeowner understood what a warranty was. So, when we had thought, structural warranty, we thought, okay, the house settled and they had gotten the work completed. And so we're thinking structural warranty, if the house ever settles in the future again, if there's any other issues with the repairs, that it'll be covered. And then when I got this warranty, it was like a one-page thing just from the contracting saying, yeah, we fixed the work, but any other work that happens in the future, it's not going to be covered. And so we backed out of that pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's probably a smart decision, too.
But we're moving in today to our other new house that we found 2 weeks later. So,
well, congratulations.
Yep, thank you very much.
All right, thanks for the call. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about expired and withdrawn listings, sellers that have been on the market, but they haven't gotten a contract at all. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Hear the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show every Saturday morning at 8 on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
The Big Talker, WTMA.
Now, here's more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston, and thanks again for tuning in to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. I always like to take just a quick minute every show to say thank you very much for those of you that tune in and that use this program as an opportunity to learn a little bit more about real estate. It's something that I've grown up doing. My family has been doing this for, I think, 60 years. I'm a third-generation real estate guy. And although it's in my blood, it's something that I really enjoy real estate, learning about real estate, investing in real estate, helping people buy, sell, or invest in real estate. I feel like that's my gift, is helping people make informed decisions about real estate. So thanks again for tuning into this program and for taking a little bit of time in your Saturday and Sunday mornings to learn a little bit more about the market and about me. And if there's anything that I can do for you, if you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, would love the opportunity to earn your business. We'll sell well over 100 homes this year. We're on target for 200 homes closed this year. One of the top teams here in the area. I can be reached on my cell phone at 843-345-1273, or you can visit my website, listingsincharleston.com. And on that website, you can look at everything I have for sale, everything I've sold, learn more about me, and you can learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee at 4.5% commission. So listingsincharleston.com is the website to go to for that. So we've talked a lot this morning about deals falling through, properties going under contract and how to react to that. I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about properties that have been on the market but that have not gone under contract at all. I want to talk about expired and withdrawn listings. An expired listing very simply means this. A real estate agent has an agreement with the seller to sell their house. That agreement expires. Usually, you hire a real estate agent for about 6 months. Sometimes 3, sometimes 4, sometimes 12. I've seen listings that have gone for years. I just listed some Deepwater property in Almondale. They had the same agent since 2008, and it just expired like last week. That's a long time to agree to work with a real estate agent. That's 7 years to try and get the property sold. And so what I want to talk about is why these properties aren't selling. Let's just look at some of the numbers. We have had a little over 18,000 properties hit the market, go under contract, and sell. That's all activity in the Charleston MLS over the past 12 months. A little over 10,000 of them have been new listings over the past 12 months. We've had a little over 10,000 properties hit the market over the past 12 months. And we have had 6,300 homes that expired or withdrew from the market. So if you look at some of those numbers, basically 1 in 3 homeowners are going to have to go through the process of listing their house and letting a bunch of people come through it, not get an offer on their house, and then the agreement with their real estate agent expiring. They need to make a decision as to whether they are going to rehire that same agent or if they're going to look elsewhere. Or maybe they don't sell at all, or maybe they go for sell by owner. But that's a fairly shocking statistic for those of you that are thinking about selling your house. You've got a 1 in 3 chance of it not working out. Obviously, it's important in hiring the correct agent to market your home. Sometimes it's the agent's issue, but sometimes, and let's be honest, it's the seller. Sometimes the seller needs to be told the truth rather than have a real estate agent tell them what they want to hear just so that real estate agent can get their listing. And that's happening more and more and more in this market, folks. Agents are telling sellers what they want to hear because there are less properties available for sale. There are more real estate agents in the market. It's harder to get listings because market share has become diluted. So what's happening? Agents are telling sellers, yes, you can sell your house for that amount. Yes, I'll do this, that, and the other when it comes to marketing your home for sale. Whatever the case might be, maybe they just don't have the information necessary to sell the house. And that sounds like, well, how could that be possible? If we're going to hire a real estate agent, they should be a professional. They should know what they're doing. I absolutely agree. And most of them do. But it becomes a challenge for some real estate agents to price a home correctly in an area where it's not new construction and every home is the same. So they might think that you're priced correctly, but in fact, you're not. Or maybe they just don't market the home the way that you expected them to because they didn't set that expectation at the table with you when you decided to hire them. So you might have a marketing issue. Quite frankly, you might just not have enough exposure, or the way in which your property is presented doesn't appeal to buyers the way it should. One of the biggest things that I find to be a pet peeve of mine in this business is the lack of professional photography for expensive listings. I can't tell you the percentage of properties that don't have professional photography that I would consider to be a luxury home, but I think you would be shocked at the number of homes that, $500,000 or more where someone went through with an iPhone or a camera that they've had stashed away in their kitchen junk drawer for the past 10 years that they still use to take real estate photos with, and they're just not promoting your property the way that it should. It looks cheap. Your house might look cheap in the way that it's presented, and that's just the way it is. That's just me being honest. And so you as a seller need to look at the way your home appears online and ask yourself the question, is this good enough? Am I happy with this? I think that there are plenty of sellers out there that would say no right now. And I'm not here to try and throw agents under the bus, but I am here to say that as a seller, you don't owe me anything, but you owe yourself the very best. You deserve to have your home marketed in such a way that is going to promote it as best as possible to highlight the features in the home and create some excitement among buyers. So maybe you have a marketing issue. Maybe you have a price issue. And let's be honest, most of the time it's price. Most of the time, if a home doesn't sell, even if it's not marketed as well as it possibly could be, if you're overpriced, buyers are going to know. Buyers are educated in this market, okay? They are looking at Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, all these other websites. They're watching the new listings hit the market like hawks. And as soon as a new listing hits the market that they agree with from a valuation standpoint, they say, yes, that house fits my needs. It looks attractive, and I think it's priced well. they're going to come and see your house, and they're more than likely going to make you an offer. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier about you having your best chance at selling your home in the first 6 weeks, and I explained why. So maybe you have a pricing issue. Maybe you just really need to get real with your seller and ask the question, are you able to reduce your price? How motivated are you to sell? Or sellers, you might need to ask your real estate agent, do me a favor, just be honest with me. What price would I need to set my home at if I needed to sell it in the next 30 days? And for some people, that's a very real statement. I need to sell my house. I need to sell my house in the next 30 days. What price do I need to set? If the difference in price is a huge gap between what you had it listed for and ultimately what the agent thinks it's going to sell for, and it's your first time hearing that number, that should be a little bit of a cause for concern. You should be able to trust your agent, and you should be able to trust the seller and have this relationship where you can talk openly about what needs to happen in order for this transaction to occur. And so that boils down to me to communication. You have to be able to communicate with one another, and you have to be able to set goals and ask yourself the question, is that goal realistic? Is that goal accomplishable? If yes, fantastic. But if not, and if you have to have a tough conversation with the seller or with the agent and they're not open to it, then it might not be the best idea to put your home on the market. Maybe you need to wait. Maybe there's something that the agent can't do for you. Maybe you need to continue to interview for other agents. There's a bunch of stuff out there that causes real estate not to sell. But the one thing that real estate agents can do, regardless of their budget or their company size or their level of experience, is they can at least be honest with you, open with you, and communicate about what's going on in the market and about what you need to do from a pricing standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, and from a condition standpoint to get your home sold. So if you're one of those sellers where you have tried selling your home in the past and you're over it, but you still need to sell, you're still considering selling, I invite you to give me a call. Over 60% of the listings that I sell were previously listed from other real estate agents. So give me a call personally on my cell phone, 843-345-1273, or feel free to go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. And if you click on the Sell Your Home tab, you can learn more about what I do to market my properties for sale. So stick around because we've got one more segment, and I'm going to tell you why I really, truly think that now is the right time to buy or sell a house. No pressure, no aggressive sales tactics here. I'm just giving you my honest opinion, and you're going to want to hear these numbers. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
More stimulating talk on real estate matters with Brian Beatty next on 1250 WTMA.
WTMA.
You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Welcome back, Charleston, and thanks again for sticking around and listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. Just a few minutes left here in the show, and I wanted to talk about something extremely important. As real estate agents, we're always tasked with trying to get people to buy stuff and trying to get people to sell stuff. And I'm sure as consumers, you're bombarded by real estate agents, especially if you go online and you look at one house on Trulia or Zillow or whatever the case might be, and then it seems like the floodgates open and everybody with a real estate license wants to get you to buy a house with them or sell a house or whatever the case might be. And obviously, as an agent that's been doing this for almost 10 years and have been in the top 1% of agents now for 6 going on 7 years, I've learned how to sift through some of this data that people provide us with to try and get clients to act. There's this obvious aggressive sales tactic among real estate agents of buy now, sell now, here's why. But they give kind of vague information. What I wanted to do with this last remaining few minutes is talk about why I actually think now is the right time to buy or sell real estate. Here's why. If you look at just the market stats so far this year, new listings are up 11%, but pending sales, new contracts are up 24% and closings are up 20%. Instead of it taking 83 days to sell a house, it's now taking 67. The average sales price is now above $300,000. It's at $307,000 for the Tri-County area. But the most important thing that I'm looking at is something called the Housing Affordability Index. To interpret this index, a value of 100 means that a family with a medium income has exactly enough income to qualify for a mortgage on a median-priced home. Okay, so everything is in balance. The higher the number is above 100 means that the family's earnings are more than enough to qualify for a mortgage. So right now, the Housing Affordability Index is at 130 so far year to date. Last year, in June of 2014, we were at 126. So homes have actually become more affordable if you think about it that way. But here's the shocking news. These are the real stats. I was sitting down last night and I went through these numbers to give you an idea of how things actually change if you decide to wait and not buy a house or sell a house. This is the real impact, okay? So in 2011, our average sales price was $251,000. 2012, it went to $264,000. That's an increase of 5%. In 2013, it was $280,000. That was an increase of 6.5%. 2014, it was $291,000. That's an increase of 4%. And now year to date, we're at $307,000. That's nearly a 6% increase from 2 years ago. So if you were to future cast pricing and payments based on increased interest rates, a lot of people are always saying you should buy now because interest rates are going up. Frankly, I think that it's a very valid comment, and I think it's a very valid concern. This is what happens to your payment, okay? If you were to buy something in 2011 for $251,000, which was the average sales price, that's a monthly payment of $1,198 a month at a 4% interest rate. Last year, if you were to buy something at $291,000 at 4%, you would be paying $1,389 a month. That's almost $200 more per month. That's an increase of 16% just on the average sales price. That's the same house that you would buy in just 3 years, okay? Now, if you were to get a mortgage today at today's average sales price, which is $307,000, you're going to pay $1,466. $1,466 a month. That's your monthly payment. That's an increase of 22% from 2011 and an increase of 5.5% in your monthly payment just from last year. Again, this is the same house. This is what happens when prices increase. But what were to happen if interest rates were to go to 5%? If interest rates go to 5% and you were to buy something this year, then your payment goes from $1,466 to $1,648. That would be an increase of almost 20% in buying the same house last year. Almost a 20% increase in your mortgage payment. Same house, you're just buying it 1 year later with a 1% increase in interest rates. Now, what were to happen if interest rates were to go to 6%? Is 6% so crazy out of left field that would never happen? 6% historically really isn't that bad of an interest rate, to be completely honest with you. So what were to happen if you had a 6% interest rate based on today's average sales price, $307,000? That would mean that your monthly payment would be $1,840 a month. Remember, $1,840 a month is what you would have to pay for a house in today's climate, whereas if you were to buy at 4% in 2011, you'd only be paying $1,200 a month. That's $650 almost a month for the same exact house. That's a 54% increase in your payment over a 4-year period if interest rates were to go to 6%. And by the way, if you were to buy a home last year, then you would have saved 32% on your payment. In other words, it is 32% more expensive for you to buy a home now today at 6% interest than it would be to have bought something last year at 4% interest. That is a huge increase. So if you think about the numbers, that's why I think now really makes sense to consider buying or selling a house. So if that's something that you're considering doing, but you're waiting, I would highly encourage you not to. Give me a call. Let's start that process, especially if you have the ability to. My number is 843-345-1273. That's my cell phone. Or go online. My website is listingsincharleston.com. Submit your information and let's start the process. I'm telling you that I really do think interest rates are going to start going up and it's going to have an impact on your payment. the same exact house could be as much as 32% more expensive for you. And those are the real numbers. Thanks for sticking around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning from 8 till 9. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. 843-345-1273.